country's ousted leader. Well, a little earlier, we spoke to the journalist and commentator Nabila Ramdani about this.
And I think the central message here is that the French politicians are just that. They are politicians, and they will stop short at nothing to advance their own interests, especially if they can claim that they're advancing their country's interests at the same time. Now, Prime Minister Fillon actually met Mubarak, so he can claim that he met him over a business deal, for example. And but when it gets rather seedy is when the way in which he tried to hush it all up until the Canard Enchaîné, the excellent satirical weekly, broke the story. Remember that the foreign French minister, Michel Alliot-Marie, when the disturbances started in Tunisia, she made a speech in Parliament to back up President Ben Ali, and she even offered to send troops to help quell the demonstrators. Remember also that President Ben Ali first flew himself to France to seek refuge before an urgent emergency meeting was held including François Fillon before the plane was finally turned around to Saudi Arabia. And there's a need amongst the French public, but also in every country really, to be held accountable, a need to transparency. But what it shows as well is that all these politicians they adopt what's called real politics. When huge business deals are at stake, then they wouldn't stop short at mixing with the wrong crowds.
A Chechen rebel leader says he was responsible for last month's suicide bombing at Russia's busiest airport. The bomb attack at Moscow's Domodedovo airport killed 36 people. Doku Umarov has also promised what he called a year of blood and tears until Russia's Caucasus region becomes an independent emirate governed by Sharia law. Well, Umarov is considered the leader of the Islamist insurgency in the North Caucasus. It's claimed that he ordered the suicide bomb attack on Moscow's metro in March 2010 that killed 39 people. Russian security forces believe he had a role in the 2004 school siege in Beslan that left 300 dead, many of those children. And between 1996 and 1999, he became Chechny's security minister during its short-lived independence. From Moscow, Niv Barker is our report.
This is the mastermind behind the deadly attack at the country's busiest airport. Doku Umarov is the nearest thing to a leader across the North Caucasus' many insurgent groups and the Kremlin's enemy number one.
This special operation was carried out by my orders. These kind of special operations will be carried out in the future. There are hundreds of brothers among us who are ready to sacrifice themselves.
This is the moment the attack happened in the international arrivals hall of Domodedovo Airport. 36 people, Russian and foreign citizens, were killed. Officials have identified a 20-year-old from the North Caucasus as the bomber. In another video last week, Umarov vowed a year of blood and tears. The man sitting on the right of the screen is believed to have been the Domodedovo suicide bomber. Nobody knows how many fighters Umarov commands, but it's thought to be near 1,000. Many are hiding out in the mountains and forests of Dagestan, Chechnya and Ingushetia. Umarov and his followers say they'll stop at nothing to secure an independent Islamic state across the North Caucasus. The Kremlin, though, say that they will eliminate the insurgents. The cycle of violence is set to continue. Niv Barker, Al Jazeera, Moscow.
The founder of the whistleblowing website WikiLeaks has been in court in the UK for the second day of an extradition hearing. Julian Assange is wanted in Sweden for questioning over sexual assault claims. But his lawyers say that if he is extradited, he could be sent to the US to face separate charges related to the leaking of classified documents. Lawrence Lee has our story.
Extradition hearings demand that the accused has to find a reason why he shouldn't be sent for trial. And so Julian Assange's defence team has sought to find experts to undermine the case against him. Much of the focus of this has been on the conduct of the Swedish prosecutor Marianne Nee. She isn't here, but is central to the case. Despite much criticism of her conduct, evidence emerged of the efforts she claimed to have made to speak to Assange before resorting to a European arrest warrant. On September the 21st, Marianne Nee first contacted Julian Assange via his lawyer, and an interview was arranged for the 28th. By the 27th of September, Assange couldn't be reached, so officials issued a domestic arrest warrant. That same day, Assange left Sweden. On October the 4th, Assange was due in Stockholm but failed to turn up. Between October the 5th and the 12th, attempts were made to contact Assange by SMS, but there was no reply. According to the Swedish prosecutor, Assange was told he wasn't a wanted man and that he wasn't at risk of arrest if he flew back to Arlanda Airport in Stockholm. Indeed, he was even offered the choice of attending an interview discreetly so the media wouldn't find out about it. They said it must have been crystal clear to him from the 27th of September when he left Sweden that they were extremely anxious to interview him over the rape claims. During this period, Assange was known to be travelling widely, preparing the massive bundle of State Department leaks, raising the question of how motivated he would have been to spend time answering questions back in Sweden. Assange's lawyer, though, argued that he'd been receiving death threats from America and, far from being on the run from Sweden, was in hiding for his own safety. And as Assange himself left the court for the day, he continued to insist the Swedish prosecutor had acted unlawfully.
And what we've seen is process abuse after process abuse being revealed for hours and hours. There is not just one senior prosecutor who originally dropped these charges, as we thought, who believed that the case against me in Sweden was wrong, but rather the current prosecutor's deputy also has made those claims.
And there was this challenge to Marianne Nee.
We have seen a prosecutor who has been ready to feed the media with information, but has been unprepared to come here and subject herself to the cross-examination she knows she cannot withstand. I challenge you, Marianne Nee. Marianne Nee, come to London, come on Friday, subject yourself to the cross-examination by Geoffrey Robertson QC.
The case will now resume on Friday. Whatever the outcome, either side can appeal the verdict. In this saga, there is no end in sight. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera, London.
The trial of the former Liberian president, Charles Taylor, has taken a dramatic turn, with the defense lawyer walking out in protest ahead of closing arguments. Taylor is facing a number of charges, including murder and rape during the civil war in Sierra Leone. He denies the charges. Nadeem Baba has more.
Just the latest row at the Special Court for Sierra Leone. Judges did not allow lawyers for Charles Taylor to submit a final document because they'd missed a January deadline. The defence called it a farce before walking out.
We do not feel that it could be appropriate for us to take part in the oral presentation when a majority of you have refused to accept our written submissions.
If Mr. Taylor thinks he can make orders or disobey orders of this court at his will, simply on the basis that it's in his best interest to do so, then he's running this court, not us.
The former president of Liberia faces 11 charges, including terrorism, murder, rape and the maiming of thousands of people. The prosecution says Charles Taylor funded and armed fighters over the border in Sierra Leone. In return, he allegedly received so-called blood diamonds. After fleeing to Nigeria, Taylor was arrested in 2006. His trial started the following year. The defence team now want more time to respond to a cable recently released by WikiLeaks. In it, the US ambassador to Liberia warns that if Taylor's allowed to return to the region, it could, quote, tip the balance in a fragile peace.
Because that WikiLeaks cable says, in effect, Taylor has to be convicted, he has to be given a long sentence, and if he isn't, the US government should be taking steps to ensure that they can put him on trial in the United States in order to keep him out of West Africa. What were we supposed to do when we saw that?
The verdict's due later this year, and under a previous agreement, if Taylor receives a prison sentence, he's expected to be jailed in Britain. Nadeem Baba, Al Jazeera.
Prosecutors in Italy have announced that they're seeking an immediate trial for the Prime Minister, Silvio Berlusconi. It's part of an investigation into claims that he had sexual relations with an underage girl. Milan prosecutors accuse him of paying for sex with a number of young women, including a 17-year-old Moroccan dancer. Berlusconi denies the claims and says that they are politically motivated. Well, from the profane to the holy, the Roman Catholic Church is cementing its place in the digital age with a confessional application for mobile phones. Yes, well, it's open to question whether Pope Benedict XVI actually has his own personal mobile, but one of his bishops in the US has sanctioned the new technology to encourage lapsed followers back to the faith. The so-called app for the Apple iPhone guides Catholics through the act of confession.